Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining me again in one of these videos of the journey that we're taking together to get to know the Qatari culture and heritage throughout the pages of its literature. Today we are going to talk about a book called Folklore in Travel Literature, written by Professor Ahmad Abdul Rahim Nasser. In this book we will find several explanation writings made by people that traveled the Gulf area and the Arabic Peninsula, and what they saw and what they wrote about the culture here. So this is a compilation of writings from different people that more than 100 years ago they came to the Arabic Peninsula, and we have even a map here that can explain us from where is each writing in this book. So they are not only stories but also observations of travelers and people that were here, and they were able to compare their culture to the civilizations that were here in the Arabic Peninsula Gulf. So in this episode we will speak about a traveler called Richard Burton. Richard Burton was born in 1821 and passed away in 1890. He visited the Arabian Peninsula, and what he did was an essay of what he considered the most important points of what he saw. He talks about customs, decorations, and weapons. He also speaks about the food and drinks that people were having in the places that he visited. He also speaks about customs and traditions. He was his attention was caught by the medicine tradition as well, and singing, dancing, and music. So in this episode we will speak about a little bit of what he wrote and what he observed, and which were the points that he considered the most important to write in his travel diaries. So regarding customs and decorations and weapons, what Richard Burton wrote was that it got his attention that the people here in the Arabian Peninsula were wearing a cotton dress with narrow sleeves, open from the front and embroidered around the waist and collars to the chest, with embroidery in the form of a net, and it falls from the neck to the feet, and some men wear white trousers. He writes that description about men. Then he refers to the woman and their way to dress as wearing dark blue cotton robes, but they are larger and wider from what he was used to see normally. He says and he explains how outside their homes women were covering their head with a yashmak, which is made of a black material or light red burqa. And he says that he finds similarities between the way women dresses here and how the women in Egypt were when he visits Egypt in that moment. He also explains that their hair is in braids, and the rich women were already making perfumes in that time, and that those perfumes were made out of rose and cinnamon. So we can see that the perfume in the Arabic culture has been something ancient and considered as a tradition. What he says about the weapons and what it gets his attention is that they wear a sword, a rifle hanging behind their back, and in addition a pistol or a dagger. He says that they had a specific way to hold the daggers and to hold their pistols, and that one hand was used for one thing and the other one was for another thing. And he explains how the way they transported their weapons was also managed in a very specific way with the way that men wore their clothing. Regarding food and drinks, what it caught him the most attention was that the meat here was dried by the sun, and that in only some specific cases, when the weather was allowing them to do it, they were boiling water and then drying the meat under the sun for 5 days. So that was something that he saw for the first time here in the Arabic Peninsula. Then he also speaks about the importance of the reunions and the meetings, and how lunch was an important part of the day and an important part of communication in the people that were living here. Regarding customs and traditions, one of the customs of most families in Mecca is that their boys go to Kaaba when they reach the age of 40 days to pray for them. This custom is considered ancient tradition and continues to be present nowadays. When Burton visited one of the cemeteries, he found out that cactus trees were grown there, and that's also one of the things that caught his attention the most. He knew that these trees were planted as a protection against evil spirits, and that these trees indicated patience. He also has a part of his writings regarding marriage and how was the tradition of the man and the family of the man asking for the permission of the father of the bride to get married, and he has an explanation about how this tradition was made and the different prayers that they did during this process. And we can also find in this book how it was the tradition in those areas regarding marriage. Last but not least, he was very amazed and amused with the singing and dancing traditions that the people which he was observing here in the Arabic Peninsula had. He makes special writing, he makes a special part where he talks about the difference of the drums and the rhythm that the drums had here, and how the music was also considered a way of communication and celebration. Thank you so much for joining me again. See you soon, and shukran jazilan.